everybody who was a part of the Ravinia program was and is so open. And that extends beyond just Billy, Rufus, and Steve. It extends to the ensemble as well. It extends to all of the staff at Ravinia. It was just such a warm and welcoming environment. It's just like a dream scenario. And everybody says that about the program that I know. Everybody who goes there, not just as the competitors, but everybody in the band, everybody, everybody is just like, it's such a warm and welcoming vibe. And I'd like to think that when I'm in an education position, especially this recent professorship that I just held and just left at Berkeley, that I was already able to be completely open and give all of my students exactly what I could in every single moment. I have to say, what really I found to be particularly incredible and in some ways even just very humbling is the openness that Billy and Rufus and Steve all had to constantly be learning about everything.
Hey everybody, Mike Jeffers, Chicago Jazz Magazine, chicagojazz.com, and welcome to another episode of Around Town. Today I am very excited to be talking with Stephen Feifke. First of all, he's a Grammy Award winner. He's an incredible composer, arranger, performer. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but specifically we're focusing on, and by the way, I'll have to have him back to talk all about that in length at some point on the show, but we really wanted to have him on today because we've just talked to Brian Ura, who was one of the competitors of the Bridges composition competition at Ravinia, which of course is coming up June 6th. Is the performance. You can see that live and in action if you go to ravinia.org and get all the information. But Stephen is on because he was actually part of that in 2020, and he went on to win a Grammy. He's written for numerous TV shows, movies, film, everything else. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but specifically the Bridges competition. Stephen, I apologize for the long intro, but I wanted everybody to get up to speed on who we're talking with. And thank you so much for jumping on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. And congrats, Brian, and all the other winners of this year.
Yeah, it's looking into this and learning more about it after I talked to Ravinia, it's really quite a competition and quite an opportunity for young composers to come in and really work with these masters. They're going to be working with the same people that you were able to work with, which is Billy Childs, Rufus Reid, and Steve Wilson. And it's an entire week, and it culminates with a performance at the end of the week of the compositions that you work with and develop throughout the week with these masters along with the ensembles and stuff. But let's talk a little bit about your background to begin with. I mean, you're so accomplished now. How did you find out about the Bridges competition back in 2020, and what made you want to get involved with it initially?
So I found out about the competition through a good friend of mine, bassist Dan Chemlinski, who is actually playing with the actual competitors, or the winners, all of this week. And he's been the house bassist in the ensemble for a few years, as I understand it. And he's been playing in my band, in my big band and trio, for quite some time now. And he actually asked me if I knew about this competition. And to be completely honest with you, I won't bore you with the whole life story here, but I've never really applied to any competitions. And so when I looked at this one, what really stood out to me is that there is an incredible opportunity to work with composers such as Billy Childs and Rufus Reid and Steve Wilson, people and artists who I deeply respect and look up to as musicians, and the chance to work with them for a week straight, not just musically, but also just talking shop, talking about life. I mean, this is an opportunity that is unlike any other thing out there right now. And I just jumped on the opportunity to apply for the chance to get some feedback on some work. And this was a few years ago now. So I've been really, really lucky that the relationships that I forged with Billy, Rufus, and Steve have been very long lasting. And Billy and I have become pretty close. And, through his guest residency at Berkeley, and actually a professorship that I recently just left at Berkeley, we had the chance to spend some good time together and really extend the relationship that was born and developed at Ravinia. And this is an opportunity that I'm very, very grateful for and excited every time I see it come up every year for all of the winners that are there, because I just know what this helped me, how this helped me in my career, and how this, I hope, can help many, many other people as well.
You bring up the fact that you like the fact that you were here for a week, you were working with them, and obviously you developed a relationship with all of them, but especially Billy Childs. But I have to say that, I mean, what an opportunity, because you're bringing in compositions, you're bringing in things that you're working on, basically. And I don't think most people, if you're watching this, you don't get that opportunity to actually, like, you might work with an ensemble or something throughout the day or throughout the week, and you wrote the arrangements, you wrote the compositions, you put it all together. You don't really have other people necessarily giving you pointers and saying, why don't you do this, that, really in depth. I mean, that to me is what stood out about this, is you're able to bring in these ideas, and then you're there for a week to get feedback on this and work with these people. And it just keeps throughout the week. It's got to organically just help your creativity, and also the ability to take all these different ideas and put them into arrangements that you can carry on forever. Right.
Yeah. And actually, it's really interesting that you just said that, because the piece that I won for back in 2020, it's called The Promised Land. And just give me 1 second here. Let me step into my office. This is right here is called Catalyst, and this is my next album that comes out in June. If you look, I don't know if you can see it over the Zoom camera, but the first track there is called The Promised Land. And this is the exact piece that I wrote for Ravinia, which is the one that debuts on this album on Catalyst with the big band. And so this is something that is a literal translation of the developmental process that you're talking about. Yeah. So very, very, very cool for sure to be able to have that feedback from Billy, from Rufus, from Steve, all throughout those days, just working so closely with them.
After, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I mean, how incredible is that, right? I mean, that ties the whole thing together. But I mean, as a musician myself, I know that when I'm getting into professional opportunities, you're there because they like the way you play, or they like the way you arrange. You don't get a lot more feedback. Maybe you're working with the ensemble and they say, maybe we should try this or that, but you're not getting hardcore, like, I would do this. I would do this. This is how I'm thinking. This is how you're thinking. What an incredible opportunity to pick people's brains. When you left that experience for a week and you went on, has that change the way maybe you approach working with younger people and the way you work with other people? You give them a little bit more openness as far as feedback goes, because you know how it helped you throughout that week?
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think that you just drew a really important point there, which is that everybody who was a part of the Ravinia program was and is so open. And that extends beyond just Billy, Rufus, and Steve. It extends to the ensemble as well. It extends to all of the staff at Ravinia. It was just such a warm and welcoming environment. It's just like a dream scenario. And everybody says that about the program that I know. Everybody who goes there, not just as the competitors, but everybody in the band, everybody is just like, it's such a warm and welcoming vibe. And I'd like to think that when I'm in an education position, especially this recent professorship that I just held and just left at Berkeley, that I was already able to be completely open and give all of my students exactly what I could in every single moment. I have to say, what really I found to be particularly incredible, and in some ways even just very humbling, is the openness that Billy and Rufus and Steve all had to constantly be learning about everything. I think that there's a Herbie Hancock quote out there that says, where he said something along the lines of, a great teacher is a great student. And he said it differently and better. And, this is not an exact quotation, but this has always been something that stuck with me from the time that I read it in high school. But seeing, all of those three masters in action and just really be open to learning from everybody, from everything around them, that is an incredible thing. These are three composers and artists and performers who I've looked up to my whole life, and to be able to be around their humanity for a week, not just around their artistry for a full week. This is a very eye-opening thing, and probably, I would venture to say the most valuable part of the whole experience was, just recognizing the humanity in everybody.
Well, I love the way you put that, because I totally agree too. And I've always thought that if you're going to be a great teacher, you can explain, no matter what you're doing, but especially when it comes to the performing arts, you can explain exactly why you're doing something the way you're doing it. And then you can take feedback off of that. And that's so important. And the fact that these masters, Billy Childs, Rufus Reeve, Steve Wilson, are part of this Bridges composition competition. Of course, the three winners are already selected to come out and they bring things in. Just the opportunity that people have, just as you're describing, is incredible. And, I should also mention that after then you went on and all of a sudden your career, it was already happening, but then it really took off, right? Just briefly, let's talk a little bit after you left the competition and you're writing and performing. You were already playing professionally and you're already doing professional compositions and things like that, but did this kickstart things? Did it motivate you more? Did all of a sudden you're like, you know what, I can do this for a living. This is the way this is the direction I want to go because of the mentorship I just received?
Well, that is a great question. And first of all, thank you for all of those kind words. When I did Ravinia in 2020, I'd already been working in New York for about 7 years. And so in terms of where I was and where I went and where I'm going afterwards, I'd like to think it's all part of the same trajectory, but the experience that I had at Ravinia has just absolutely changed my life for sure. And, I'm just looking in the background of my own video camera right now, and I will point out just 3 of these things are, they're at the end of the day, they're just things. They're just things, right? But I have 3 of my most special possessions right here on my desk that I look at. There's this, which I just got. This is a trophy that my students made for me with they call me Mr. Jazz Mix-a-Lotl, and this is one of my absolute prized possessions. And then right next to that, I have my Bridges statue to remind me of the experience that I had working with those 3 great masters, but also with my peers and colleagues in the ensemble. And so this is a really, really special thing as well, just to be able to have put The Promised Land, the song that I wrote for Bridges, on my next album, and the mentorship that I received musically and otherwise when I was at Ravinia really is so invaluable, and I'm so grateful for that opportunity.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to make sure everybody watching this, you can go see the 3 winners and see what their work was throughout the week. Tuesday, June 6th at 7:30 p.m. It's at Bennett Gordon Hall, of course, ravinia.org for all the information. You can buy tickets and go see what they've worked on throughout the entire week. And, Stephen, it's been wonderful having you on. And as I mentioned, I've got to have you back. So maybe when the new release comes out and everything is out and happening, we can have you back and we talk all about your career more in depth, because we could talk probably for 3 hours about that. But real briefly, when is the new recording actually out and available? And then, of course, they can get it all at your website, StephenFeifkemusic.com. But when is it out?
Yeah. So thank you for that as well, Mike. And it's been really great to be here, and I really appreciate the opportunity to just sing the praises of Ravinia in general, as well as just the Bridges composition competition. And for anybody who is watching or listening, I do highly recommend that you go check that out. And I just want to take a second as well and just really say a huge thank you to everybody who makes this possible. Billy, Rufus, Steve, of course, everybody on the staff, and also just the incredible board and donors and patrons at Ravinia that make this all possible. It's really changed my career, and I'm so grateful for it. So this record, Catalyst, comes out on June 16th. It comes out on La Reserve Records and on Bandstand Presents. We have a show actually next week, 2 weeks from now, rather, at Dizzy's Club Coca-Cola at Jazz Lincoln Center in New York City to release it, and then at Scholars in Boston. And my website is StephenFeifke.com, StephenFeifkemusic.com. It all points to the same direction. And I hope that anybody listening to The Promised Land can really hear the Bridges influence in there for sure.
Well, and also I think isn't Dizzy's does live stream too, I think, right? So they do get that on a live stream. So if you're watching this June, when did you say the Dizzy?
June 8th at Dizzy's and June 10th at Scholars, and then the album formally comes out on June 16th.
Well, and hopefully we'll see you in Chicago at some point soon with an ensemble. That would be fun,
I
right?
hope so too. That'd be great.
All right, Steven, I really appreciate it. Of course, StevenFeifkemusic.com. Go check everything out that Steven has done. You will be astonished that, and those of you that watch the show, you'll be astonished that I didn't go down the wormhole and we started talking about all the other stuff for the next half hour. But I'm controlling my conversation so that we can get focused specifically on Ravinia today. So, Steven, thank you so much for being on, and we will definitely need to have you back on sometime, maybe later in the summer, to talk about everything else.
Anytime, Mike. Thank you so much, man. Much appreciated.
Appreciate it. And of course, I thank everybody for watching. All the information, as I always say, is at chicagojazz.com. And until next time, hopefully I will see somebody out on the scene.